I like the sexy way you walk. All that I can do is walk. You got me hexed 'cause I want you and we can do the things that lovers do. So come on boy, give me your break and tell me, do fries go with that shake? Do fries go with that shake? Do fries go with that shake? I said do fries go with that shake? 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 I said do fries go with that shake? 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 I said do fries go with that shake? 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 I said do fries go with that shake? 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 I said do fries go with that shake? Do fries go with that shake? Your empty passion won't satisfy me. I know. So don't pretend that you want me. You don't want me. No. No more words. You're telling me you love me while you're looking away. No more words. No more words and no more promises. Love. We make love, it's all the same. Your eyes show nothing, no lover's flame. Well, don't promise we can work it out. You can leave right now if you're feeling down. No more words. You're telling me you love me while you're looking away. No more words. No more words and no more promises. Love more words. You're telling me you love me, you're looking away. No more words and no
fight out Combi on a hippie trailhead full of zombies. I met a strange lady, she made me nervous. She took me in and gave me breakfast. And she said, do you come from a land down under, where women go and men wonder? Can't you hear the thunder? You better run, you better take cover. Buying bread from a man in Brussels. He was 6 foot
only been written down. But every time that I kiss ya, feels like I can figure you out. It's like I'm in love with a stranger, but you touch me and I just can't resist. Oh, yes, I like playing with danger, till you go and change your colors again. Chameleon, you spin me round and I don't know where to go. I don't know where to go. I don't know where to go. Hey, you spin me out and I don't know where to go. I don't know where to go. I don't know. You spin me round and I don't know where to go. I don't know where to go. I don't know where to go. Hey, you spin me out and I don't know where to go. I don't know where to go. I don't know. You know, you bring it on. Ay. I know it's just human nature, but you had to go and fuck up again. I should just get up and leave ya, but I know you're gonna pull me back in. 1 minute you're all up on me, and I'm almost thinking you'll make it last. Then you go around, fucking around, think about, do you ever think about me? I can't keep up 'cause you're moving too fast. You spin me round and I don't know where to go. I don't know where to go. I don't know where to go. Hey, you spin me out and I don't know where to go. I don't know where to go. I don't know. You spin me round and I don't know where to go. I don't know. I don't know. No. You spin me out and I don't know where to go. I don't know where to go. I
Razageth's storm has abated. It is time to return to the Forbidden Reach and search for survivors, and seek answers about the dragon.
왕카이
Magic
감론
surrounding
이렇게
this area has gone
배신의
wild. This untamed instability is a threat to our allies.
Lately I've been feeling low. I know I should let you go. Got me on my tippy toes. See you wherever I go. You're in my head. You're in my head. You're in my head. I can't forget. I can't forget. Just can't forget. Want your romance. Want your romance. Want your romance. Just one more dance. Just one more dance. Just one more dance. You're in my head. You're in my head. You're in my head. I can't forget. Just can't forget. Your romance. Want your romance. Want your romance. Just one more dance. Just one more dance. Just one more dance.
Just one more day.
Hello, wherever you are you dancing on the dance floor, drinking by the bar? Tonight we do it big and shining like stars, and we don't give a fuck, cause that's just who we are. And we are the crazy kids, them crazy kids. And we are the crazy kids. We are the crazy people. I see you in the club showing catch a love, ain't tripping on them bitches that be hating, catch a dub, chucking deuces. Y'all hating's useless, it's such a nuisance. Y'all chickens, keep your 2 cents and keep your dollars, keep your loot. I'm fresher than that Gucci. Them boys, they want my coochie. I say no, I'm no hoochie. Yo, homegirl hating, I say who she? Kesha, don't give 2 fucks. I came to start that rock us, and you wanna party with us, cause we crazy motherfuckers. Hello, wherever you are you dancing on the dance floor, drinking by the bar? Tonight we do it big and shining like stars, and we don't give a fuck, cause that's just who we are. And we are the crazy kids, them crazy kids. And we are the crazy kids. We are the crazy people. You see us in the place, tripping off the bass. CD DJ, rock a beat, make the fucker shake like an earthquake, Booty pop, all my shorties on the dance floor, make your heart stop your cardiac, sipping cognac in the back. They chasing my kitty cat, they know my zodiac. I'm no virgin or no Virgo, I'm crazy, that's my word though. It's Kesha in the casa, baby, let's get loco. Hello, wherever you are you dancing on the dance floor, drinking by the bar? Tonight we do it big and shining like stars, and we don't give a fuck, cause that's just who we are. And we are the crazy kids, them crazy kids. And we are the crazy kids. This is all we got, and then it's gone. You call us the crazy ones, but we gon' keep on dancing till the dawn. Cause you know the party never ends, and tomorrow we gonna do it again. We the ones that play hard, we live hard, we love hard, we light up the Hello, wherever you are you dancing on the dance floor, drinking by the bar? Tonight we do it big and shining like stars, and we don't give a fuck, cause that's just who we are. And we are the crazy kids, them crazy kids. And we are the crazy kids. We are the crazy people.
And now for my next number, I'd like to return to the classics.
Kill him with the beat, 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 kill him with the beat.
Two hearts that khi mà anh không hết ly uống thêm vài ly để mình chẳng mấy khi vui nốc thêm bên trái vì anh em chờ mình khi gặp lại nơi đây nó xoay xoay thế gian nó xoay vòng anh đang ở đây đâu biết anh có thấy lòng đừng nói chi mà mình ngồi đi 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 1 hình như anh nói anh say rồi 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 1 hình như anh nói anh yêu em rồi em đã run run nhưng anh thì có gió đi anh mà không để em là khi mà anh không hết ly uống thêm vài ly để mình chẳng mấy khi vui nốc thêm bên trái vì anh em chờ mình khi gặp lại nơi đây nó xoay xoay thế gian nó xoay vòng anh đang ở đây đâu biết anh có thấy lòng đừng nói chi mà mình ngồi đi 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 1 hình như anh nói anh say rồi 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 1 hình như anh nói anh yêu em rồi
Keep on dancing to the rock and roll on Saturday night, Saturday night. Dancing to the rhythm in our heart and soul on Saturday night, Saturday night. I just can't wait. I got a day at the good old rock and roll show. I gotta go Saturday night. Saturday night, gonna rock it up, roll it up, do it all, have a ball. Saturday night, Saturday night, Saturday night, Saturday Gonna dance with my baby till the night is through. On Saturday night, Saturday night, tell her all the little things I'm gonna do. On Saturday night, Saturday night, I love her so. I'm gonna let her know. At the good old rock and roll show, I gotta go Saturday night. Saturday night, gonna rock it up, roll it up, do it all, have a ball. Saturday night, Saturday night, Saturday night, Saturday night.
First things first, I'm the realest. Drop this and let the whole world feel it. Let them feel it. And I'm still in the murder business. I can hold you down like I'm giving lessons in physics. Right. You should want a bad bitch like this. Huh? Drop it low and pick it up just like this. Yeah. Cup of Ace, cup of Goose, cup of Chris. High heels, something worth a half a ticket on my wrist. Taking all the liquor straight, never chase that. Never. Stop like we bringing 88 back. What? Bring the hooks in where the bass at. Champagne spilling, you should taste that.
I'm so fancy. You already know I'm in the fast lane. From LA to Tokyo. I'm so fancy. Can't you taste this gold? Remember my name. Hard to blow.
I said, baby, I do this. I thought that you knew this. Can't stand no haters and honest. The truth is that my flow retarded. HB did departed. Swagger on stupid. I can't shop in no department to get my money on time. If they about money, decline. I swear I'm in that day so much to get that line of rewind. To get my money on time. If they about money, decline. I just can't worry about no haters. Gotta stay on my grind. Now tell me who that? They do that. Put that paper over all. I thought you knew that. I be the I-G-G-Y. Put my name in bold. I've been working. I'm up in here with some change to throw.
I'm so fancy. You already know I'm in the fast lane. From LA to Tokyo. I'm so fancy. Can't you taste this gold? Remember my name. Hard to blow. Trash the hotel. Let's get drunk on the minibar. Make the phone call. Feel so good getting what I want. Yeah, keep on turning it up. Chandelier swinging, we don't give a fuck. Film star, yeah, I'm deluxe. Classic expensive, you don't get to touch.
Still stunned how you love that. Got the whole world asking how I does that. Hot girl, hands off, don't touch that. Look at it, I bet you wishing you could clutch that. That's just the way you like it, huh? It's so good, he just wishing he could bite it, huh? Never turn down nothing. Slaying these hoes, go trigger on a gun like.
I'm so fancy. You already know I'm in the fast lane. From LA to Tokyo. I'm so fancy. Can't you taste this gold? Remember my name. Hard to blow.
Who that? I-G-G-Y. They do that. I-G-G-Y. Who that? I-G-G-Y. Who that? I-G-G-Y. They do that. I-G-G-Y. Who that? I-G-G-Y.
show you how a true G parties.
Mix it with a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Twist it if you wanna get a fix, if you wanna feel that. Mix it with a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Twist it if you wanna get a fix, if you wanna feel that.
Let me show you how a true G parties.
Mix it with a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Twist it if you wanna get a fix, if you wanna feel that. Mix it with a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Twist it if you wanna get a fix, if you wanna feel that. I live my day as if it was the last. Live my day as if there was no past. Doing it all night, all summer. Doing it the way I wanna. Yeah, I'ma dance my heart out till the dawn. But I won't be done when morning comes. Doing it all night, all summer. Gonna spend it like no other. It was a crush, but I couldn't get enough. It was a rush, but I gave it up. It was a crush. Now I might have wanna said too much, but that's all it was. So I gave it up. I live my day as if it was the last. Live my day as if there was no past. Doing it all night, all summer. Doing it the way I wanna. Yeah, I'ma dance my heart out till the dawn, but I won't be done when morning comes. Doing it all night, all summer. Gonna spend it like no other. It was a crush. I kept saying I'ma stay in touch, but that thing went bust, so I gave it up. Ooh, no tricks, no bluff. I'm just better off without them cuffs. Yeah, the sun won't set on us. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Yeah. When low, when high, still waters run dry. Gotta get back in the groove. I ain't never heard it. When low, when high, what matters is enough. Getting right back in the mood. I live my day as if it was the last. Live my day as if there was no past. Doing it all night, all summer. Doing it the way I wanna. Yeah, I'ma dance my heart out till the dawn, but I won't be done when morning comes. Doing it all night, all summer. Gonna spend it like no other. Now I found another crush. The lush life giving me a rush. Had one chance to make me blush. Second time is one to let. Now I found another crush. The lush life giving me a rush. Had one chance to make me blush. Second time is one to let. I live my day as if it was the last. Live my day as if there was no past. Doing it all night, all summer. Doing it the way I wanna. Yeah, I'ma dance my heart out till the dawn, but I won't be done when morning comes. Doing it all night, all summer. Gonna spend it like no other. Now I found another crush. The lush life giving me a rush. Had one chance to make me blush. Second time is one to let. Now I found another crush. The lush life giving me a rush. Had one chance to make me blush. Second time is one to let. If you need to take time when you make up your mind, I will be here. You don't have to hide or keep it all inside. I'm always near. I try so hard to write it all out. You work so hard to push it all down. You keep your heart open, hidden
Okay to love blind, and you know you'll be fine. No need to fear. Hold me up to my words. This passion behind my eyes is reserved all for you. I tried so hard to write it all down. You work so hard to push it all down. You keep your heart, you keep your open heart, hidden in the dark. Open heart, afraid that it'll break apart. Open heart, think that you should start to have an open heart.
Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Prison planet, Gnosticism, and reincarnation trap ideas are gaining traction. These ideas seem to be growing more and more in popularity. They've been getting more popular since the 90s, and now we even have entire subreddits dedicated to these ideas. What are we to make of this? Are we awakening? Is this another trap set? Do we dare to be optimistic?
Yes, this realm is designed in a way. If you look at this place as an outside observer, you can see how it all connects to one purpose: loosh harvesting or something along those lines. If you look at near-death experience reports, most come off as some person being screwed with by an astral timeshare salesman. Then you have this dark control force that rules over our government, with high taxes, insane laws, and layers upon layers of brainwashing. If you dare question this realm with that mindset, you get this response.
It's all BS cope for people who haven't done a single lifetime focused on spiritual growth in the past 5,000 years to find a new way to be the victim of some higher power. Not surprising that it is popular here on X and on Reddit.
Which is a manipulation tactic to shame and guilt trip you, like the majority of human interactions. But I think there is a bigger picture than loosh harvesting. Because we lack so much information, combined with the flawed structure of the human mind, it's a miracle that this awareness got this far. The reason why I believe it to be true is I have a lot of experiences that would validate such an idea. I have woken up in a simulation tank, attacked by parasites, and got into higher awareness before. I don't know what's going on, but I think this realm might be a trap for many different beings, with different states of consciousness and origin. Like they slowly groom you to be here, while the bigger self is distracted until it gets hoodwinked. I don't know if it is truly like this, though a lot of the prison planet type people are so stressed and self-ending that it is hard to organize. I'm like this too. I see some people fight and argue over nothing, which to me is dumb since we all share the same cell. It doesn't help that the New Age movement is full of greasy weasels, but I notice they like to idealize a victimhood complex. I think we can fight them with our imagination. I think imagination might make us rare, and they want this. That brings up many questions. But the Archons seem to need imagination awareness to manifest things. I don't know what is going on, but we need to go about this with clear minds and courage. Fear is what they ride on to screw with us.
I am very curious as to what will happen if these ideas become even more popular, though. Might even be the start of a new spiritual movement. If it does, then believers of this worldview will have their ideas tested as if they are right and all of this stuff does actually exist. Then those entities will have no choice but to reveal themselves if there is a mass movement against them. No. Conspiracies are becoming more and more mainstream. What happens if Gnosticism is mainstream?
Last time it happened, the Cathars were killed off in mass for hundreds of years and their history burned and wiped from public knowledge. I wonder what the simulation is trying to do. Because it has the power to stop this movement, but it lets it continue and foster. Some conspiracy circles are becoming big enough to profit from it.
The prison got smarter. It'll just hijack any threatening movement now and neuter them in such a way that it doesn't pose a threat and/or it actively misguides people. Notice how modern meme Gnosticism is focused on pointing the finger at the universe, but lacks any personal accountability like discipline and training. This lays out a path to some potential future solutions. For example, the universe sucks. Don't worry. Take this brain chip, and we'll live in our own better world. I have this theory that our world isn't actually a real physical world, but an astral simulation disguised as one. While incarnated, the simulation makes us believe that we are in a material world with constant stress, or this realm is a copy of a real realm, but we got abducted. And now we are here. The reason why I think this, I don't know if it's real, nor have evidence, more a thought experiment. One, because the simulation likes to push out the idea that we are contained in a body, or a locked world, and the only way is to leave is death. Two, is our reality is fake, and can be manipulated by thought, which to me implies that it is a dream realm. Then you have the Mandela effect with the past and present changing. I have experienced realms that felt more real than ours. And why do we have so much control when they are the supposed prison wardens? Lastly, they are tricksters who can control the narrative of humanity and don't act like the simulation has full control. I know that we have real bodies, in a word, in systems and cycles. But I wonder if we are in some astral realm, fooled believing we incarnated here. I can't explain it well in text, but all regions have the fundamental foundation. And what if the foundations have zero truth in real reality? There are a lot of holes in my theory, but I noticed a lot of conspiracy will build off of an older one, like how a prison planet builds off of Gnosticism. The only reason why they believe the only way out is death is near-death experience reports or channeling. I think channeling is dangerous and can't be trusted. And near-death experiences are designed for the living, not the dead, to influence the living beliefs on death. I think death could be a way out. Why is there no talk of leaving this realm without relying on death? I don't think my theory has much weight in filled holes because you can counter it easily with other schools of thought or facts.
How do we actually fight with imagination? What did the parasites look like?
When they mess with me, I try to keep them back. It works the majority of the time. Also, before bed, I build an aura shield around me and imagine a searing, painful light filling my room that will purify everything it touches. Then I claim that my room is my territory, and I'm a free and sovereign being. I have noticed that it works most of the time, but I can get a glimpse of them when waking, and sometimes they can interject themselves in my dreams. But doing these imaginary exercises decreased my attacks by 80% and can't harm me as much. What did the parasites look like? I saw many types. Some look like Greys, and they all have different facial structures and body frames. Some had all black eyes with skinny heads, while some had iris like a goat with fat heads. Others looked like weird gremlin goblin creatures. I noticed these tend to lay on my chest, and will suck loose from your mouth and have the ability to project illusions in front of their face. I saw this twice, and touched 2 of them before. Others are these weird ball-like things with identical spikes. They like to get over your mouth or hover above you. I see these types almost every day. They will dart once you spot them. I think they are a type of surveillance entity. Then I saw some that looked like typical demons, like the imps from Doom, or odd humanoids with demonic features, like a person with spikes and cracked red skin, or some ash golem. One thing I have noticed is that some are more powerful than others, and you can tell this by their vibe, and like to use weaker entities as bait or shields.
Prism magic is enveloping our planet Verdi. The prism magic is an advanced magic that creates confusion and our current level of math and geometry cannot fathom and thus cannot escape. It is neither 3D, nor 2D, nor flat, nor globe, convex, nor hollow. A infinitely prismatic tesseract that is heavily guarded. The enclave of the slave, you the monkey who first climbed up the tree of Eden, is tasked and best suited to mine in this poisonous land and is trapped in here, plants being our filter. To climb the tree means you can climb a hole you dug when mining. This is the best skill, and thus the monkeys are the first ones to use the vines to traverse the ravine. The reason plants used to bear poison and still has poison on many of its parts, inedible, is due to the poison that is apparent in our soil. Do you think those pebbles and rocks are not poisonous? Think again. There are all kinds of radon and possibly other radioactive isotopes in there. You are here forever, this mining enclave, enslaved, enraged. You will never.
Someone stated a theory that we were advanced back in the 1800 to 1900 period with huge structural buildings and statues all over major cities like Chicago, but then they just tore them down and now we have our shitty-looking cities of today.
Very well then.
Was civilization greater back then and history was lied about to cover it up?
100%. More disturbing than this obvious thing is that our history also seems to be fluid. No one even had thoughts such as yours, OP, before about 10 years ago. How is this possible? Were we just dumb, blind, collectively suffering from amnesia, drunk on the abundance and great times of the 80s and 90s? Our perception has undoubtedly changed and continues to evolve. It truly is like we are all waking up. Well, some of us. The ones that are not seem to be even more ensnared by the reality spell. You know whom I'm talking about. The people you know can't wait to enter the metaverse. Any metaverse. Right after they get a Neuralink implant. It's speeding up as well.
The one thing that always messes with me is how do they discover ancient cities, roads, buildings, etc., all underground. For example, a few years ago they were renovating a city square, and due to the excavations they found a huge network of ancient Roman buildings right underneath our city. Or a random farmer was digging some stuff in his backyard, and suddenly he hit some carefully arranged stones. Turns out there's a literal ancient highway stretching for hundreds of kilometers, and as it so happened, part of it went through the farmer's land. Or someone digs something in a hillside, earth falls off, and it turns out there's actually a huge-ass coliseum or cathedral or other random building just sitting there, covered by masses of earth so that it looks like a hill. How does that happen? It's not that there are 1,000 years of invented history. More like history is much, much older than we're told. Civilization is much, much older. 2,000 years ago, we were still relatively close to where we're now. But think about 5,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, 20,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago. I think humanity is much older on this earth, where civilizations have existed for a much longer time than we're told, and so much has been transformed and forgotten. Say if there was an advanced civilization 60 million years ago, with cities and technology and whatnot, how much evidence we'd still have today?
The issue with history nowadays is nobody gives a crap about not pre-World War I, but even post-World War II, or even 30 years ago. I will tell you as far as I can from my family history. First of all, before the so-called economic boom of 1960 circa, most of Europe and I would guess the US too was rural. Our gramps lived on farms, and most of their livelihood came from there. Radios, let alone TVs, were a novelty and a luxury. MSM were locally printed newspapers. This is important to understand for at least 2 points. We're literally and physically living in Boomer's world, and the means of mass communication we enjoy today are very recent. Then the family stuff, in my gramp times. Late 18th, early 19th century, there weren't any internet, no passenger airplanes, nor work from home. There was one thing called vaporetto, or steam-powered ship cruiser. My grandpa took one to Australia to go hunting rabbits to raise some money, and I still hold a physical receipt of that. Then you have World War I, which brought even more poverty in Europe, the US stock exchange fault, the Depression, and finally World War II. All these events acted as a giant blanket, meaning many people died, were displaced, and or lost everything they owned. Prior to World War I, Europe was either monarchies, colonial empires, or both, while the Middle East was the Ottoman Empire led by current Turks. This is mainstream history. There's nothing hidden about it. Just general people aren't interested nowadays. And the living memory was somewhat lost after the 60s because nobody wanted to be reminded of their humble rural origins. The great buildings and cities built in the US and around the world were made possible from the technology of those times, plus steel and concrete. They were made to impress. The problem with the US is that you'd rather tear down those structures and build new ones. In Europe, we tend to be more conservative with urban landscapes unless we bomb each other.
Let's say the whole free energy ancient tech thing is 100% fact. What did they use electricity energy for besides lights, heat, and radio communication? Does having free energy equal being able to build amazing structures with amazing detailed artwork? If they built some type of motor, I can't imagine they didn't just end up building a spaceship, as the main issue is energy once you build a machine, and if they did and left us and never came back, shouldn't we destroy everything they made? Some say they live inside Earth, but even then, wouldn't it be messed up to let all this happen to their own species when they have tech that could help? I don't understand what the ancients would use electricity or free energy for, so it doesn't make sense that they would invent a need for and be further advanced than us today. The weirdest part about history is how much what is taught in grade school diverges from reality. Honestly, it is pretty much no different from propaganda, even if you are just sticking to accepted history. It is exceptionally apparent if you look at the narratives told and how far they diverge from reality. This is mostly caused by intentional political battles at the state level, but it recasts history as just a bunch of accepted propaganda. If a historical narrative is politically unpopular enough, it would never gain academic acceptance, no matter how real it is. Now take events that you have lived through. If you go back and study them, you'll usually find that there have been significant revisions to the historical narrative to the point where your lived experiences seem false. Now, apply this to every event throughout history and compound it with the large amount of lost sources, and the entire story of human civilization rings hollow. History itself might as well be a pointless effort outside of the political realm and storytelling. This is the schizo thought I had this week.
For me, the Library of Alexandria story sounds fictional like a myth. It's already based on the idea of Alexander the Great, who is already not much of a real figure as he's presented to us, at least. If anything, the plague years taught me that nothing actually of note even happens. We're becoming worse because the population is getting lost inside while browsing the web, whether it's out in public via smartphone or on their computer. We're being trained to think that video games are exciting, that social media is exciting, that having all this information in our pockets is impressive and important when it's anything but that. Since we enter school from a very young age, we are groomed to believe that information or technical knowledge is something important and impressive to have access to, while I don't think this is the case after all. I actually think that all this information is useless crap we don't need, and I would involve even the information we bring up in this very thread. Human beings can naturally build crazy buildings and technology by pure instinct. We are being systematically suppressed from that fact, though, via being immersed in this particular society construct. We're not in tune with ourselves and our innate imagination. It has been squashed in us since early on and offered countless distractions, so we can never regain it properly. Just walking outside feeling the sunlight is much more interesting than anything you can read in books or on the internet. We've been heavily psyoped.
How you feel about something is true. It's not arbitrary. The very idea of changing how you feel is to lie to your soul. It's good to try and envision a better world which makes you happy. That's true. But it also means that when negative stuff is thrust in your face, you shouldn't pretend it makes you happy either. It only sounds complicated, but really it couldn't be more simple. Just be honest with your soul. That's basically it. Never lie to your soul. But if you want another analogy, consider that you're standing in a fire. If you're in denial that the fire burns, are you ever going to leave? No, you have to accept the truth of the fire. That it burns, it sucks, and you want to leave. You have to accept the truth of this life, that it's garbage and you want out. But that doesn't mean to seek out the burning. If you keep going toward burning, you're never going to leave either. Just because you have to see the bad stuff for what it is doesn't mean you should go looking for it. You have to see the better way, but also see things for what they are. I've come to realize that trying to escape has become itself a meme. Yes, there are burdens. But if you're already this far on the journey, it gets to a point. You get spiritually pushed into a corner which shows your highest destiny, and it transcends personal and subjective morality. It seems to break the barriers of the human social construct into a purely cosmic and chemical one. I don't know any other way of explaining it. I've also come to realize that explaining too much and trying to guide others on the path is too dangerous. Look at it this way. If I explain one thing, you having your own senses will filter it out in ways that it'll lose its original meaning. It'll become perverted over time and naturally become corrupted like all other schools of thought. You just gotta do you. The secrecy of truth exists because it's so strangely interpersonal but so connected on a cosmic scale. It's mind-boggling. I wish you luck. I will take my own advice and learn to slowly stop speaking about it. And if you can understand my perspective, you can understand why it's not hidden for the sake of secrecy, perhaps by some. I just know that thankfully, the highest truths in occult knowledge are held by the good guys, and they are small and few. That I can promise. Just do you.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel and more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Worthy of a tale or two of your
UFO whistleblower I'm sure you guys have all heard about by now. He's claiming that the U.S. government is in possession of multiple UFOs or flying saucers that are not from Earth. So there's a new UFO whistleblower stating that the United States government is in possession of multiple crashed UFOs. So his name is David Grush, and he's apparently high up in the intelligence community with some really top secret security clearances, and for some reason at this time he's come out spilling the beans on everything. So there's something about this that isn't really talked about that often, and most people really don't understand what's really going on. So here's the thing about David Grush, okay? Have you seen the show, The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch on the History Channel? Well, on that TV show, there is a guy who was head of the UAP task force, which was the government's own investigative committee on UAPs or UFOs. His name is Dr. Travis Taylor. Now, the thing about Dr. Travis Taylor is he is on the Skinwalker Ranch TV show, and I guess he's kind of a public face. However, the man still holds top secret, high-level security clearances. And he's only allowed to say certain things and disclose certain things about what's going on. Now, this information is from Dr. Travis Taylor's own mouth. And one of the behind-the-scenes episodes of The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, you have to pay for it. It's not really on TV or anything, but what he said was that he actually worked with David Grush. He's his colleague. They're colleagues. They work together, and they're really good friends in real life. And then he stopped it right there and said, that's all he can say about the matter, which is kind of crazy if you think about it, because here we are with Dr. Travis Taylor, one of the main faces investigating the phenomenon at Skinwalker Ranch, confirming David Grush's place in the UFO field, okay? Now here's the thing. Dr. Travis Taylor, in my opinion, knows a lot more than he's saying. In my opinion, he knows exactly what's going on at Skinwalker Ranch. There's a lot of talk about alien bases or UFOs underground or interdimensional portals at Skinwalker Ranch. And I actually think there is a UFO that David Grush is talking about under the ground that was placed there thousands and thousands of years ago during what is now called in mainstream academia the Younger Dryas event, okay? The Younger Dryas event is what the Bible calls the flood of Noah and what hundreds of other cultures call a worldwide flood. There was a worldwide flood that took out the world. We know about it from the Bible, but this is actually corroborated through science, and it's called the Younger Dryas event. Okay, so during this event, us Bible believers believe that the Lord God himself destroyed the world because of basically the infestation of fallen angels and UFOs and all this advanced technology on the earth that was actually extremely detrimental to human society because people were enslaved by these things. Now, if you want to look at it on the other side, this is the kingdom of Atlantis, okay? This is Atlantis. This is the Atlantean technology, which, is buried under the ground at Skinwalker Ranch. Okay, so just to make it clear, the Younger Dryas event, or the flood of Noah, or a global flood, took out everything in the world. And while it was doing that, it destroyed countless UFOs, alien bases, fallen angel technology. All this stuff is buried under the ground right now. This is where the government was able to collect these UFO craft, okay? these UAPs, UFOs, these flying saucer discs that they're in possession of, they come from this time thousands of years ago. Now, the book of Enoch tells us that these fallen angels, okay, you might call them aliens, the world might call them aliens, but we know them as fallen angels. And the word angel just means messenger. The book of Enoch talks about them as evil beings that rebelled against the Lord God, Yahweh, came down to earth and taught humans forbidden technology, sexual things, and all sorts of stuff. Now, fallen angels and aliens are one and the same thing. How do we know that? Well, the Bible talks about it. The Bible talks about how when God created the world, the angels sang for joy because the world was created. That means that these beings were outside of the creation of the world and they watched it be made. So by very definition, they are extraterrestrial beings, okay? So the definition of extraterrestrial is not coming from Earth. So if angels were around to watch the Earth be made and they rejoiced, well, how could they be terrestrial, right? So they're not from Earth. They're extraterrestrials. And me and a lot of other people believe that these angels fly around in craft, okay? We don't believe that there's some ethereal spirit beings that just float around and go through walls. No, we believe that they are actual flesh and blood beings that fly around in craft. They have high advanced technology, and this technology infested the world back in the Atlantean times, back in the days of Noah, right? Now, here's the thing that kind of brings this all together. Jesus Christ himself talked about, somebody asked him, when are you going to come back? When is your second coming? He said, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be when the Son of Man comes, when the Son of Man returns. I'm paraphrasing, but basically saying, when you see the world become like the days of Noah were, look out, because that's when I'm going to return. And I'm going to put a stop to all of this stuff. Now, if the days of Noah were infested with UFOs, fallen angels, alien beings, and this crazy technology that was destroyed during the Younger Dryas event, or the flood of Noah, well, are we seeing a return to that during this time? I think we are. And I think this new whistleblower, David Grosh, is key and instrumental in bringing this on. Now, remember what Tucker Carlson said a couple years ago. Check this out.
But apparently, just recovered are off-world vehicles not made on this Earth. That's a direct quote.
That's right. He said off-world objects not made on Earth, right? He said the U.S. government is in possession of them. So this David Grosh is not only verifying what he said, but he's actually confirming it and he's expanding on it, okay? Now, I have some information here that we're going to get into regarding David Grosh's story in the Vatican, and we're even going to talk about Admiral Byrd's expedition to Antarctica, Operation High Jump. Now, another thing Tucker Carlson said recently, which a lot of people speculate maybe why he was kicked off Fox News for saying this, he said this about UFOs were actually injuring and killing U.S. servicemen. So Tucker Carlson said that UFOs land at military installations and the servicemen come up to them, get too close, and they either suffer traumatic brain injuries, or they just die right away, or they just get this crazy, or something else happens to them, right? So these UFOs are very, very harmful to humans. So apparently there's been hundreds of servicemen, U.S. servicemen, and probably other servicemen around the world that have died because they came in contact, close contact with UFOs. And shortly after that, Tucker was fired, okay? Was this coincidence? I don't think so. Here's a clip of him talking about that. Check this out, too.
And they had all these court cases from families of U.S. servicemen, over 100, who'd been killed by UFOs.
So UFOs have been reported all throughout history for thousands of years. I have videos on this channel that talk about ancient UFO sightings. That talk about UFO sightings in the old times, in Roman times, back in 1800s, 1700s, earlier. UFOs have never not been a thing. They've always been around, right? And if the Bible talks about them as angels, which, like I said before, I believe they are angels. And another thing is, every single time angels appear to somebody in physical form in the Bible, they appear as a human. They look like us, okay? Now you might be saying, well, what about Ezekiel's wheel and all these things? That isn't physical form, okay? Ezekiel's wheel wasn't something that was physically in front of Ezekiel. Ezekiel was in a altered state of mind, okay? He was having a vision during this, okay? The Lord gave him a vision. So he wasn't seeing something that was flesh and blood directly in front of him like I am. What he was seeing is a vision into the spirit realm, into a different dimension. So yeah, there's angels that look crazy and have, all these things. Now, when you look specifically at angels who appear physically in our world, 100% of the time they appear as human beings. So what does that mean? That means they look like us, okay? The Bible talks about alien beings. Angels are aliens because they were around to watch the earth be made, right? They rejoiced. So if angels are aliens and they always look like us in the Bible when they appear physically, well, therefore, angels look like humans. So we have alien species that look like humans. And they're good ones that follow Yahweh, that follow God, that, they haven't been corrupted, but there's also bad ones. They're fallen angels. So they're just bad. They look like people, but they're bad. They're evil. And these are the ones, I believe, that the U.S. government is in possession of their technology. Now, did they make a deal with them? Probably. Justin and Westfall talk about in their film Higher Entities, in one of my interviews with them, that Eisenhower met not only with the Greys, which is a different story, but also with the tall white aliens, or the Nordic aliens. The ones that look like Nords. They're tall, they have blonde hair, blue eyes, and they very pale skin. These are the ones that I believe are the actual fallen angels. And the Greys are pretty much like robots. They were designed to be vessels for the spirits, right? So that's why when people are being abducted by aliens, they call out the name of Jesus. What happens? It stops right away, instantly. Now, this has been reported time and time again. So how would it make sense? How would it make sense if gray aliens are from a different planet, millions of light years away, somewhere on the other side of the universe? They come here, they take a person as like a science experiment to kind of see what's going on. Hey, let's take this person. But they call out the name of Jesus and they stop, they're scared. It doesn't make sense. The only thing that makes sense in that situation, if the name of Jesus can stop alien abductions and can turn these things away, that means Jesus has dominion over them, right? Jesus is their boss. Jesus is the boss of everything. That's the only thing that makes sense, logically. Now, I digress. Let's go back and talk about this David Grush fellow a little bit, okay? So he claims that not only does the government have these UFOs, that they've had them for a long time, and that the Vatican knows about them, right? Which doesn't surprise me at all, because the Vatican is, in my opinion, part of the fallen realm. I believe these fallen angels have been in control of the Vatican for hundreds, maybe thousands of years, since the beginning. Since the Vatican has been a thing, I believe it is a thing for the enemy. I believe that they are working for the other side, for the bad guys, okay? Now, I could be wrong, right? But this guy, David Grush, is basically saying, yes, this is what's happening. Now, let me read this to you. This is from Daily Mail. Pentagon whistleblower says Vatican is aware of the existence of non-human intelligences and helped the U.S. retrieve the downed UFO from Italian dictator Mussolini at the end of World War II. That's right. David Grush, 36, has spoken out to say the U.S. has run a top-secret UFO retrieval program for decades and claimed that the Vatican was involved. He said the first ever recovery of a spaceship was in Genta, Italy in 1933 and was held by Mussolini's Italian government from 1944 until 1945. Now, is this true? Who knows, right? This is the first time I think anybody's hearing about this. But doesn't surprise me. And the thing is, like I said before, hundreds if not thousands of these UFOs under the ground, because during the Younger Dryas event, they were all washed away and buried under tens to hundreds of feet of soil, dirt, rocks, mountains, right? Like, look at Skinwalker Ranch, that mesa there. Now imagine a huge wall of water, miles high, washing everything away and bringing with it UFOs underneath. So the UFOs get deposited underneath the dirt and then all this water washes on top of it, and what's left is you got the mesa there now, and you got, you know, mountain ranges and stuff like that, and underneath that, who knows, right? So let's go on to talk some more about this. Garish claimed it was partially intact and held at an airbase until the U.S. retrieved it after a tip from Pope Pius. So he's saying that after the collapse of the Italian government after World War II, the Pope contacted the U.S. government and said, hey, we got this UFO, come get it. Like I said, doesn't surprise me one bit. If this is true, which we don't know if it's true because misinformation is the game that they're playing here, right? They like to mix truth with lies. They like to spread disinformation, misinformation, and false information. Why? Well, they want people to believe a certain thing. They want people to think a certain way about this. And they don't want this story getting ahead of them. They want to be the arbiters of truth. They want to be the ones telling people what these things are, what to believe they are, and what the future holds, all right? Instead of people like me saying, hey, these things are way older than they're saying, and these things are going to bring in the next age, as Jesus was saying, as it was in the days of Noah. These things are going to herald the days of Noah, right? Because the days of Noah, in my opinion, and others, the hallmark of the days of Noah, in my opinion, is Nephilim hybrids, Nephilim beings, giants, UFOs, and high technology, right? This is what I believe the days of Noah consists of, okay? Now let's continue reading here. A Pentagon whistleblower has claimed the Vatican is aware of the existence of non-human intelligences and helped the U.S. retrieve a downed UFO from Italian dictator Mussolini at the end of the Second World War. David Grush, 36, served 14 years in the Air Force and is a decorated Afghanistan combat officer who worked for the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, NGA, and the National Reconnaissance Office, NRO. His role was to act as the NRO's representative when dealing with Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force. Okay, so that's where him and Dr. Travis Taylor probably knew each other, because Dr. Travis Taylor from Skinwalker Ranch was the head of the UAP task force. And this information just came out. Dr. Travis Taylor was allowed to reveal himself as the head of that, okay? Because whoever's in control of his security clearance said, okay, you can release this information now, and he did. So now we know Dr. Travis Taylor was the head of the UAP task force, and he's colleagues with David Grush. So David Grush was asked in an interview with News Nation if the Catholic Church is aware of non-human existence on Earth. He replied, certainly. Of course. Fallen angels. Angels themselves, they're non-human. Okay, so the very definition of the church, if you believe it for what it is, they obviously believe in this, okay? And David Grush was also asked during this interview why his claims should be believed, and he said, I have credentials, and I was an intelligence officer. I think he still is. I believe he was told, and he was chosen to release this information right now during this time because some event is coming. The reason why all this stuff is coming out right now is because something's about to happen, okay? Is it going to be full-on disclosure, or is it going to be something else? Are the beings themselves telling the government, hey, we're about to do something, so you better get ahead of this thing, because as soon as it happens, the whole world's going to talk about it. I believe that disclosure is imminent, okay? That things are about to be revealed to the public that's going to shock people. What's his name? Bigelow from Bigelow Aerospace, okay? The first guy that owns Skinwalker Ranch. He's gone on record saying that, yes, aliens are not only here, but they walk among us. And if the world found out about it, they would go into chaos and everything would shut down. Here's the thing. I believe he was wrong about that, okay? Bigelow doesn't really know what he's talking about in that regard. I know he's a smart man, but he really doesn't know because every religion talks about these beings. They might be called something else, but they're definitely not human, and they are known by everybody, okay? The whole world knows about this, and they've been in our lore for thousands and thousands of years, okay? So, his opinion might be that if the world found out about this, there would be chaos. Well, there might be some chaos, but nothing's going to collapse because we already know what they are. And the fact is that they are scared of Jesus Christ. What does that tell you? If these aliens come down to Earth and fly all this advanced technology, but are scared of Jesus Christ, the name of Jesus, and they're scared of Christians, well, that right there should be everything you need to know about the situation, because logically, what other thing makes sense other than the fact that Jesus Christ is the Lord of all things? Okay? Why would they be scared of him if he wasn't? Doesn't make sense. So back to this article, he added that UFO sightings in Italy during Mussolini's dictatorship are widely known. Yeah, during World War II, they had the Foo Fighters, right? American pilots reported UFOs the whole time, right? During a lot of these battles, UFOs were seen. Now, there's rumors that those were Nazi technology, the Die Glocke and things like that, which can't really be substantiated. However, I believe that the Nazis also were in possession of these craft and knew how to fly them. Why? Well, because the Nazis were deep and heavy into occult practices. They did blood sacrifice rituals. They traveled the world to find all these sacred objects and use them for their dark occult rituals. Now, we know where that ended up for them, right? Pretty bad. Just goes to show you that they promise you, as the entities, they promise all this power and this glory, but all it does is turns you crazy and it ruins everything, okay? Like the power that these things hold, that the Nazis got, ended up destroying them, okay? Now, what else does this say? During his interview, he wasn't able to provide evidence to his claims because the documents and data are classified. Yeah, they're classified. That's why Roswell is still classified. If Roswell wasn't legit, why would it still be classified? Think about it. Now, we know what happened in Roswell. If you look at the original news report from that night, it's obvious what happened, okay? That original news report is correct. Now, after that, there's been a lot of whistleblowers, there's been a lot of things around Roswell surrounding those events that corroborate those claims. Roswell is probably the government's first official UFO retrieval, okay? Now, it's extremely nuts that humanity as a whole hasn't been benefiting from this broad research. It could solve propulsion, energy issues, novel material science that can improve people's quality of life. So that's what they're going to say, right? Oh, well, let's make this information public because it can make things better. Better for who, you might ask? Because I'm going to tell you right now, the average person walking down the street isn't going to benefit from this whatsoever. If anything, they're going to be killed because of it, because there's going to be some crazy war, and guess what? World War III. It's not plausible that the average person walking down the street would benefit any way from this. Who's going to benefit? The elites. The people that are in charge of things. The people who think that they control this stuff. But little do they know, they don't control anything. They're just pawns in the game just like everybody else. Grush also added that the U.S. is in an arms race with Russia and China to understand the extraterrestrial life. In recent comments, he said non-human intelligence have acted with malevolence and even killed some humans. Duh. I think the logical fallacy there is because they're advanced, they're kind. We'll never really understand their full intent. That's because we're not them. We actually do understand their full intent. The Bible talks about it. These beings are corrupt, and they're against everything that the Bible stands for. They're against everything that Jesus Christ himself said and did. Otherwise, why would they be scared of him? And why would they try and send people away from him? Right? Think about that. He also made the astonishing claim that the U.S. government would do anything to protect the secret, including killing people itself. Duh. I've heard some really un-American things I don't want to repeat right now, he said. He claims that some of the UFOs that have been discovered were as large as football fields. I think even larger than that, to tell you the truth. I think that some of these things that are buried under the ground are miles wide. There's a lot of witnesses that talk about mile-wide UFOs, and I believe they know how to find them underground because, as we've seen on Skinwalker Ranch, they output this 1.6 gigahertz signal that Dr. Travis Taylor has been instrumental in figuring out and trying to bring this information to the public. So, whenever there's some sort of phenomenon going on, there's always this 1.6 gigahertz signal happening at the same exact time. I believe this is their calling card. And this is how the U.S. government finds these things underground in Antarctica and all these different places. All you have to do is just fly over an area or drive over an area with this equipment, and when you see that signal, look down. There was a sophisticated disinformation campaign targeting the U.S. populace, which is extremely unethical and immoral, he said it, accusing the U.S. government of lying to the public for decades. So now he's trying to say that he's the good guy, oh, the government's lying. He's part of this disinformation campaign, okay? Remember Paul Benowitz, okay? Paul Benowitz was the target of a disinformation campaign by the U.S. government to make him believe certain things about aliens and underground bases. Why? Because that's what they do. They want to steer this whole story. They want to get out ahead of it and tell people what to believe and what not to believe about this thing, because they want people to believe a certain thing about this, and they don't want people to know about the connections to the Atlantean times, to the days of Noah, and to the ancient past. They don't want those connections being made. Why? Because that would reveal exactly who they are, what happened to them, and what will happen to them when they come back during the days of Noah and the return of Jesus Christ. They don't want anybody knowing that, because when Jesus comes, every single knee will bow. All fallen angels, all aliens, everybody. They're in for some trouble, okay? Now, probably heard of Admiral Byrd and Operation High Jump, right? So, after World War II, the U.S. government sent Admiral Byrd on a mission to Antarctica. where apparently he encountered a lot of UFOs. Now, what I'm about to read from you is from WikiLeaks. Okay, this is from WikiLeaks. There's a whole article on it, and there's a little section called Admiral Byrd and UFOs. Byrd flew over a German base in Antarctica during Operation High Jump, and that in retaliation, 4 of his aircraft were shot down by a German secret weapon, which were UFOs, right? Recovered UFOs, like they're talking about now, recovered by Germany, shot down 4 of Admiral Byrd's aircraft. The planes were lost around 73 degrees south and 23 degrees east, far to the east of the Mulig-Hoffman Mountains. The single event throws the whole Operation High Jump exercise into a curious light, for it somehow changed the whole character of the Byrd expedition. Within 48 hours, Admiral Byrd had given orders which canceled the expedition and made preparations to leave Antarctica. The mission had lasted closer to 8 weeks than to 8 months. No official reason was given for the sudden withdrawal. The claim that many of Byrd's men were lost, killed, and that at least 4 of his aircraft had disappeared in mysterious circumstances involving strange enemy aircraft. So they just vanished. Something happened. These UFOs hit them with something and they disappeared into a different dimension. All this information was made in a 1948 European periodical called Bristant, which is lost to history at this point, apparently. Claims that the German base was defended by a powerful secret weapon, including flying saucers. As early as the 1950s, rumors began to circulate among German nationalists that the post-war flying saucers were in fact German superweapons that had been under development and tested during the Third Reich. At the time of Germany's surrender in May 1945, this technology was supposedly shipped to safety in the Arctic, South America, and Antarctica. The abundance of UFO sightings was thus attributed to hidden Nazi presence in the remote and inaccessible regions of the world. And by the way, Antarctica is still off limits to this day. You're not allowed to go there. The only people that are allowed to go there are government people and different governments, okay? Now, there's a story a while back that I heard. A scientist, a researcher, was in Antarctica with a team, and somebody on his team got injured, severely injured, where they were going to die. Well, they called for a medevac, and the plane picked them up. And instead of flying from point A to point B to the closest hospital, the plane was forced by the government to go around this giant area instead of going straight to the hospital. They had to go around this closed off area, which was just apparently ice and mountains. So the guy died because the plane couldn't get there in time. The plane couldn't just fly to the hospital. They had to make a detour and fly around this top secret area. The flying saucer story has been given some credence in UFO circles by something Byrd is claimed to have had said in a newspaper article. The article by Lee Van Atta, who was one of the U.S. reporters on Operation High Jump, appears in March 5th, 1947. It is claimed that Byrd said in this article that in case of a new war, the continental United States would be attacked by flying objects, which could fly from pole to pole at incredible speeds. From pole to pole at incredible speeds. What does that sound like to you? Sounds like this TikTok incident, right? It sounds like what we're seeing today. We're seeing these things. The text, it also says that Admiral Byrd warned today that the United States should adopt measures of protection against possibly an invasion of the country by hostile planes coming from the polar regions. Think about that. Hostile planes coming from the polar regions. The Admiral explained that he was not trying to scare anybody, but the cruel reality is that in a case of a new war, the United States could be attacked by planes flying over both poles. The statement was made as part of an explanation of his polar experience. In an exclusive interview with the Intercontinental News Service talking about the recently completed expedition, Byrd said that the most important result of his observations and discoveries is the potential effect they have in relation to the security of the United States. So whatever he saw down there scared him because he knew that there's no match for what these things are. The U.S. can't defend against them. There's nothing they can do. They fly with impunity through our skies, through any skies, and there's nothing anybody can do. What they want to do, they do. And he knows if they chose to attack America or any other country would lose the war immediately because there is no competition. So I believe this whistleblower, this new whistleblower, is setting the stage for something, setting the stage for some event, some disclosure event that's going to confirm all the things that we already know and that we've known for a long time through other whistleblowers and different sources, okay? Now, I want you to remember when these things kick off, when you see these events on the news, when they're shown, when they allow a news crew in with cameras and everything live on TV to show you, hey, this is a UFO, this is a UAP, this is an alien spacecraft, look at it, film it. I want to know what you think about all this stuff. I know I said a lot of things that might be controversial, but it's all documented and it's all stuff that people have been talking about for a very long time. So I want to know your opinion. Are we entering the days of Noah? Are we about to see disclosure take place on a large scale that's undeniable? Is it going to be through the government? Is it going to be on some TV show like Skinwalker Ranch? Or is it going to be something else? Will UFOs land in the White House lawn or New York City or LA or everything simultaneously and say, hey, we're here, worship us now, right? Because that's what they're going to do. When they land, they're going to say, you better worship us because we are superior to you, until you use the name of Jesus. And that proves that they're not superior, that they are inferior because Jesus lives in us. And if they're scared of that, well then, think about it. What does that mean? Right? Okay, everybody. I want to thank you all for watching this video. Until next time, God bless you all.
Mount Graham is considered one of the 4 holiest mountains in the world for the Apache and is considered sacred to all of the region's native peoples, and it is so because it is what we might.
Just beyond the confines of our vision lies a realm, a spiritual realm filled with entities. These entities are all around us, and they like to wreak havoc in our lives. This video is all about spiritual warfare and what we can do as Christians to counteract their effect on our lives. Join us while we talk about spiritual warfare. All right, so before we get into spiritual warfare, we need to go over the differences between fallen angels and demons. A lot of people think fallen angels and demons are the same thing, but they're actually way different. So the difference between fallen angels and demons is simple. Fallen angels are created by God, and the word angel actually means messenger. They're spiritual beings that were created by God, and the fallen ones decided to rebel against God, and those are the fallen angels. Now, demons are actually not created by God. They were not sanctioned by God, and they were never supposed to exist. Demons are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim that were killed during the flood of Noah. So there's millions and millions of these disembodied spirits just wandering the earth. And that's why people get possessed, because they have no body, but they used to have a body. It wasn't a human body. It was some sort of hybrid creature that was never supposed to exist, but they had a body. And the interesting thing about this is, if you watch these ghost hunter shows on TV, or like stuff like Paranormal Witness, or anything like that, where people describe paranormal ghost encounters that they've had at their house, a lot of times they describe this black mass that's about 12 to 15 feet high with a monstrous looking face, and they describe these as demons. And it's funny because they don't know what the scripture is, but they're describing a Nephilim. They're describing a Nephilim giant that was never supposed to exist. So we have collaboration between non-believers and believers on what these demons actually look like. Now, angels can't possess people. Throughout the Bible, time and time again, angels are described as having their own body. Now, they're spiritual beings that live in another dimension, but they have the power to influence our dimension and to even make themselves solid. Angels can come into our reality. They can appear as people. It even tells us in the Bible, be careful when we're entertaining strangers, because we might be entertaining angels unaware. Remember that verse? So angels can look like people. They can manifest themselves into normal people. But demons, they can't do that. They have no body, and that's why they need to possess people. So I want to tell you guys a story about spiritual warfare and how it affected me. So this happened April 2019, somewhere around there. I went to the Hear the Watchman conference in Dallas. It's a Christian Bible prophecy conference. There's a lot of speakers speaking there. Now, a lot of you guys have seen my interviews that have came out of that conference, and basically, yeah, I drove 12 hours to get there, and it was my first time actually being in the presence of like real Christians, because as some of you are aware, I came to Christ through the Holy Spirit. I never knew any Christians. I never met anybody. Nobody ever told me about the Bible, nothing like that. It was basically the Holy Spirit himself was like, hey man, I need you to follow me, so come on. But anyway, last year I drive 12 hours to this conference all by myself. I get a hotel room, and as soon as I get there, I get checked in and everything. I start to feel this like uneasiness, and I started praying, and it wouldn't go away. The uneasiness just got worse and worse. And that night, like the night before the conference started, I started to feel like I should just pack my bags and go. Something was telling me, just go. You don't belong here. Just leave. Pack your bags, go home, and you could just continue on. But I don't know. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to leave. Something kept telling me to stay, and I was convicted that I needed to stay, but something in my head was telling me to go. And looking back at this was definitely the enemy. The enemy was trying to get me to leave because the fruits that were going to come out of this conference were major. So basically, I kept praying, and I overcame these feelings. And the next day, I went down into the conference, and history was made. I ended up getting interviews with all these great people, and these interviews were like, some of them had over 1 million views on them. So the enemy didn't want these interviews getting out. He basically didn't want me to be there because he knew that the interviews that I was going to put out were going to bring people to God. And basically spiritual warfare is about one thing. It's about keeping people from God. It's about keeping people from the truth of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And it's about keeping people's souls in damnation. The enemy doesn't want people saved. He doesn't want people to be on the right path. He doesn't want people to be in the narrow path. He wants people to be living in sin. He wants people to be backslidden. He wants you to be constantly confused and doubting. He doesn't want you to be happy. And that's exactly what it was. So as soon as I realized what happened and what was happening the night before, I just started thanking God because he allowed me to have the strength to persevere, to stay, even though everything inside of me was telling me, you need to go. You don't belong here. I literally heard in my spirit, you need to leave. You don't belong here. These are not your people. You don't belong here. And it took every ounce of spiritual power that I had to stay. And this is a perfect example of spiritual warfare because the enemy doesn't want you to succeed. He knows what's going to happen if you stay on the true path. He knows that if you keep doing the Father's will, his kingdom is going to be destroyed. And he doesn't want that. So he wants you to go and do your own will. He wants you to go and do your own thing. He doesn't want you to follow God. He doesn't want you to follow the Bible. So everything he can do to get you off of your path, he will do it. So anytime you feel these feelings like you don't belong, or doubt, or questioning, stuff like that, rebuke those feelings immediately because you know they're from the enemy. And you know that as soon as you get over these feelings, there's glory ahead. And God's glory is greater than anything at all that the enemy can do. I know this video is a little bit different than the videos I normally make, so let me know how you feel below. If you like this video, please hit that like button and I'll know whether or not to make more of these. And if you don't like it, you can hit the dislike button, I don't care. Or just go ahead, leave a comment, tell me what you think, tell me how you feel, and let me know whether or not you want to see more of these videos. Alright guys, so spiritual warfare. Most people don't realize how big of a deal spiritual warfare is. You know, people, they like to get caught up in the day-to-day. They like to get caught up with these little battles that they fight, but they don't realize that every single battle that you fight is spiritual warfare. Let's see what the Bible has to say about this. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of the dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in heavenly realms. Now, as we all know, the New Testament was originally written in Greek. So if we want to really understand what the Bible writers were saying, we have to look into the Greek and see what the original words used were. So in this Bible verse in Ephesians 6:12, the original word used for the word rulers is cosmocrator. Now, cosmocrator can be summed up as a spiritual being, a spiritual entity that is in control of a certain specific location. So who are they? Who are the cosmocrators, or the spiritual rulers that the Bible talks about? Well, in order to find the answer to that, we need to dig a little deeper in Scripture. And just like everything else, our answer is always found in the Bible. In order to understand what cosmocrators are and where they come from, we must first take a look at what happened at the Tower of Babel. Right after the flood of Noah, Nimrod built a tower that reached heaven, and God was actually kind of upset about this, and he did something supernatural, and this is called the confusion of tongues. Now, the confusion of tongues is when he took everybody in Babel and supernaturally spread them around the world and changed their languages. Here's what it says. Genesis chapter 11, verse 8. So the Lord scattered them from there all over the earth, and they stopped building the city. This is why it was called Babel, because the Lord confused the language of the whole world. From there, the Lord scattered them all over the face of the world. Now, when he did this, the next part of the story picks up in Deuteronomy 32. Now, when he scattered people all over the world and confused the languages, he also assigned them cosmocrators to each specific geographic location, or what we would call small g gods. Now, all the gods that you know from ancient India, China, all over the world, every single culture, there's small g gods, and they're actually biblical. You have the gods of India, Tibet, you have South American gods, you have Mexico, you have the ancient old gods of Mesopotamia and Egypt and Greece and all these places. Throughout every ancient culture all over the world, you have legends of gods. Now, this is all in the Bible. And these are what we call cosmocrators, or what some people might call fallen angels. This is called the Deuteronomy 32 worldview. Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 8. When the Most High gave the nations their inheritance, he divided up all mankind. He set up boundaries for the people, according to the numbers of the sons of Israel. Now this is where it gets important. Almost every Bible that you'll buy today, it says sons of Israel under Deuteronomy 32:8. However, if you look at the original Hebrew text, and I'm not talking about the Torah, I'm talking about before that, the original text as seen in the Dead Sea Scrolls, which were buried 3,000-4,000 years ago, these scrolls have full versions of the Old Testament. And in these full versions of the Old Testament, we can see the original Hebrew texts. And the original Hebrew text is the way it was intended to be written down, and it was written down that way. So if we look at the original Hebrew text under this verse, it doesn't say sons of Israel, no, it says sons of God, which in Hebrew is B'nai Elohim. Now, B'nai Elohim means a spirit being. This is not a person, this is not a human, these are spirit beings. So let's read this again with the spirit being in mind. When the Most High gave the nations their inheritance, now he's talking about what happened to the Tower of Babel, that's their inheritance. He spread everybody around. When he divided all mankind, he set up boundaries for the people. Again, Tower of Babel, confusion of tongues, according to the number of the sons of God, according to the number of spirit beings. Basically, what he did was he spread people all around the world and assigned spirit beings, or small g gods, to these people. This is why every culture around the world has their own gods, right? These gods are assigned by our God, Yahweh, the God of Israel, according to the number of the sons of God. So when he sent everybody around the world, he assigned each individual group of people geographically a small g god, or multiple gods. All over the world, it's the same. These cultures all have their own gods, and these gods were assigned to them by our God, the God of the Bible, Yahweh. So what does this mean for us as believers? What does that mean when it says our battle is not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers and spiritual wickedness? Well, it means that everything that happens to us, everything that we might perceive as negative, is caused by spiritual influence. So let's say you're in traffic. Somebody cuts you off and they beep at you, and you start to feel rage inside. Road rage. Road rage would be considered spiritual warfare. What else? Anything, basically. Anything that's going to take your eyes off of God is spiritual warfare. So anytime you find yourself straying mentally, physically, it doesn't matter. That's spiritual warfare. Spiritual warfare can manifest itself in thousands of different ways. And all you need to do to look out for it and identify it is say, is this taking me away from God? And if the answer is yes, rebuke whatever's happening in the name of Lord Jesus Christ. I'm gonna tell you another story of spiritual warfare, but this one was before I was a believer. This one was 4 or 5 years ago now, before I became a believer, maybe a year or two before I gave myself to God and became a born-again Christian. So here's the story. This is back in 2015, before I was saved, and I know that some of you guys are going to hear this and be like, whoa, but hey, I wasn't saved, and what can I say? So I was about 29, maybe 30 years old, and I just got a job at a strip club as security. Now, I'm a big guy, I'm like 6'4", 225, and yeah, so they hired me just because of my size, and you know, my personality, all that. I'm not really aggressive, I'm not really an aggressive type, and you know, that job calls for a lot of aggressiveness and assertiveness, so basically I faked it till you make it, right? So I got the job, and slowly but surely became like their full-time security guy. I got good at it, working there. Let's just say there's a lot of stories about that place that I can't really get into and I don't want to get into. And working there for a little over a year, I became the main security guard. And this night sticks out like a sore thumb in my memory banks because I'll never forget this. It happened to me and I saw it, I still remember it. So basically, we were open till 4 a.m. and it was in Key West, Florida. So up until 4 a.m. it's busy. You know, that place is party central. People are up all night doing stuff, partying all the time. So this particular night, it was about 2, maybe 2:30 a.m. and this woman comes in. Now, we never let women come into the club because women would come in, single women would come in and they would snipe. We called it sniping. They would snipe the men. And we wanted the men to all stay there because they were paying the dancers and the bartenders and the waitresses and stuff like that. So having these single women coming in and sniping the men was bad. It was against the rules. So one part of my job was not to let any women in by themselves. So this particular night, this woman comes in and she's like, I don't know, 40, 50 years old, somewhere in between there. And she walks up to me and she's like, hey, you know, I live here, blah, blah, blah. Trying to make small talk, and I'm like, okay, cool, but I can't let you in. And she starts to get a little upset and angry. I'm like, sorry, you know, I can't let you in. No matter what you do, no matter what you say, I can't let you in. And she's, you know, she's arguing with me, and eventually I'm like, just leave because you're not getting here, just go before I call the police. And this is what happened. It was crazy. She turned around and walked away. She turned back towards me like this with a big grin, like a menacing grin on her face. She goes, just like that. But her eyes, no, this is the part that's weird. Her eyes were completely black. And I'm not making this up. This is 100% truth. It happened. Her eyes turned black for just a split second. When she turned around and she grinned at me with that evil grin, she had black eyes, completely black. It looks a little bit like this. But it was a woman. So at this point, my spine just ran cold. My blood ran cold. Shivers and all that stuff went up my spine. And I was like, whoa, what just happened? She walked out and never saw her again. But that is another case of spiritual warfare. Now that's a little different because I wasn't a believer, and I honestly think that there was a demon inside of that woman who was manifesting itself to me just to let me know, like, hey, I see you, and just smiled like an evil grin right at me. It was the creepiest thing I've ever seen. So demons do exist. I've seen them. I honestly believe that was a demon manifesting itself. I was not saved. I was not a believer at the time, so I don't know what it would have been like if I was a believer. I guess I wouldn't be working there, huh, if I was. So yeah, so that's that story. So what are some other examples of spiritual warfare that you can look out for? Like I said before, it's anything that will take your eyes off of God. So let's say you're in the grocery store and the person checking you out gives you an attitude, and for some reason you just feel, you know, rage inside, or you feel you know, you start to feel angry or whatever. You feel hurt. You feel, why didn't that person say hi to me? Or why were they so mean to me? Did I deserve that? What did I do? That's spiritual warfare. Spiritual warfare is a way to just keep you distracted. And that's what the enemy wants. The enemy wants you distracted, because if you're distracted, you're not effective. And God wants you to be effective bringing people into the kingdom, because the time that we have left is very short. So that's it, everybody. That's the video on spiritual warfare. So if you like this video, like I said before, please hit that like button. If you don't like the video, let me know how you feel in the comments below. And until next time, thank you all for watching, and God bless you all.
All Hallows Eve, the night when spirits deceive. They wander the streets, seeking those who are weak. Demons will roam with the darkness of fire. On All Hallows Eve, where evil transpires. When you hear the word Halloween, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Is it this? What about this? Or something like this.
All these traditions.
In recent times, Halloween has become synonymous with costumes, candy, cool decorations, TV shows, and movies. But what is its true history, and where does it come from? The information I'm about to share with you is far darker than any horror movie, and it's written in the pages of our history books. This is the secret history of Halloween.
There's one magical, haunted evening each year when all the scary creatures come out to prowl through every neighborhood.
In order to understand where our modern Halloween comes from, we must first take a step back in time. The word Halloween dates back to around the year 1745, and it means Saints' Evening, due to the fact that the Catholic Church designated November 1st as All Saints' Day, so All Hallows Eve is actually All Saints' Eve. However, the origins of the holiday go back way farther than that. You see, the Catholic Church is well known for placing its own holidays directly over the ancient pagan holidays that people used to practice, and Halloween is no exception to that. Originally called Samhain, this night is considered sacred by the ancient Celtic people. It's said that spirits are able to roam freely, as the veil between our world and theirs is at its thinnest point on the night of October 31st. Quote, another great festival of the ancient Celts was Samhain, which was held on October 31st, on the eve of the pagan feast, the night known to us as Halloween. This was a wild and savage occasion, with human sacrifices offered and victims burned as offerings by the Druids to the gods. End quote. Now, if we take a look at this book from the year 1870 entitled Irish Folklore, Traditions and Superstitions of the Country, the picture becomes a little more clear. Quote, throughout these islands, great similarity appears to have prevailed regarding the sports and incantations practiced among our peasantry on the eve of All Hallows. Many of those customs are fast disappearing, but in former times we can scarcely doubt they had connection with certain pagan festivals. At present, they are partially continued as affording occasions for social amusements, especially amongst our young people. It was season appointed by the Druids for solemn intercession of the living and for the souls of dead persons who departed life. We are next informed that the Druids taught the Pythagorean doctrine regarding the transmigration of souls. These were called to judgment at this season by Baal Samhain. According to their merits or demerits in their past life, souls were assigned to enter bodies of the human or brute species. There were they to be proportionately happy or miserable during their next term of abode on this sublunary globe. But the punishment of the wicked persons might be alleviated by the employment of charms and magic arts, or through the means of sacrifices made by their friends to Baal. Sacrifices to Baal. Where have we seen this before? Jeremiah 19:5, and have built the high places of Baal to burn their sons in the fire as burnt offerings to Baal, which I did not command or decree, nor did it come to my mind. 1 Kings chapter 22 verse 53. He served Baal and worshipped him, and provoked the Lord, the God of Israel, to anger in every way that his father had done. In Jeremiah chapter 32 verse 35, they built high places to Baal in the valley of the son of Hinnom, to offer up their sons and daughters to Moloch, though I did not command them, nor did it enter my mind that they should do this abomination, to cause Judah to sin. You see, the name Baal refers to an ancient deity who some may call Lucifer himself. The ancient Hebrew translation for the name Baal is, quote, Baal, and according to the Strong's Concordance, it occurs 81 times in the King James Version Bible, and it means Baal, Baal, a Phoenician deity. So, why are the ancient Celtic people performing rituals and sacrifices for an evil deity that's mentioned all throughout the Bible? Well, let's continue reading. Quote, the day following the great festival, when sacrifices of black sheep are said to have been offered for departed spirits, while the Druids exhibited every possible description of charms or natural magic. How far the modern festivities or incantations of All Hallows Eve have been derived from ancient Gentile rites or ceremonies would prove a question difficult to determine, but this time of year forms sort of era for its peculiar observances among our ancestors, alluding to All Hallows Eve or Vigil of Samhain. One of their practices was to assemble with sticks and clubs, going about from one house to another collecting money, bread, cake, butter, cheese, and eggs for the feast. The young females go out at midnight and cast a ball of yarn into the bottom of a lime kiln, whilst holding on by a thread. If the girl wind on and nothing hold the yarn, it is a sign the winder will die unmarried. If she feels it pull from her, she asks, who pulls my yarn? When it is supposed her future husband will give his name or appear to her. Sometimes a demon will appear instead, and this latter event indicates that her death is not far distant. These customs are almost entirely extinct. They were considered too closely allied with diablerie and magic to be used by any except the most reckless and unchristian practitioners. It is considered that on All Hallows Eve, hobgoblins, evil spirits, and fairies hold high revel, and that they are traveling abroad in great numbers. The dark and sullen Fuka is then particularly mischievous, and many mortals are abducted to fairyland. Those persons taken away to the Raths are often seen at this time by their living friends and usually accompanying fairy cavalcade. If you meet the fairies, it is said, on All Hallows Eve, and throw dust taken from under your feet at them, they will be obliged to surrender any captive human being belonging to their company, end quote. So we have demonic beings roaming the earth, evil spirits, and fairies abducting people and taking them into another dimension. Could this holiday get any worse?
If you don't know the people very well, don't go into their homes. Most people enjoy having trick-or-treaters come to their doors. But there are a few people who will do things to hurt kids.
Let's take a look at another book entitled Celtic Myths and Beliefs. Quote, the Feast of Samhain was above all the most important date in the Celtic calendar. The Celts believed that the duration of the festival was a special and mystical time, an interstice between two distinct temporal periods during which the normal order of the universe is suspended and the barriers between the natural and the supernatural worlds are removed. All the gods and the dead move freely among the living, sometimes interfering with their affairs, end quote. Now, we just learned that ancient Celtic people considered Samhain to be, quote, above all, the most important date on the Celtic calendar. But what about in modern times? Isn't Halloween just about having fun now? Nobody does those evil things anymore, right? Wrong. What if I told you that modern-day Satanists still consider Halloween to be the most important date on the calendar? For proof of this, let's go over to an official U.S. government website, the National Criminal Justice Reference Service, or NCJRS.gov. Here we can find a document that tells us just how important Halloween is to Satanists. This document is called, quote, Satanic Cult Awareness, and it has some shocking information regarding modern-day Halloween and the season around it. Here we are on page 17, where it says plain as day, quote, October 31st, Halloween, or Samhain, the first highest satanic holiday, celebration of the beginning of the Celtic year, end quote. The first highest satanic holiday. What does that even mean? Well, we can find the answer to that on page 26 of this document. Quote, All Hallows Eve, Samhain, Halloween, Sabbat Festival, announcing onset of two most important Sabbats. Attempts are made to break the bond holding closed doors to the underworld. And next to that, it gives some details that are too disturbing to read out loud.
Tonight has been a magical night. We saw a scary monster change into a beautiful, happy, and safe little princess. How about you? Will you follow the lead of the little princess and have a safe and super Halloween this year?
So there you have it, proof that Halloween night is not just about costumes and candy. It's really about blood sacrifice, occult rituals, and communication with ancient spirits. I want to thank you all for watching this video, and until next time, God bless you all. Have you ever wondered why the world is the way it is? I mean, at this point, society has become so unstable, it seems like we are just one major event away from a full-blown societal collapse. There are just too many factors in play at the moment, and once we reach that tipping point, there is no turning back. Now, those of us Bible believers know exactly what is coming. We know why it's happening, and we also know what needs to be done to prepare for it. But what about everyone else?
Yes, yes! No, 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 yes, no.
So why is the world the way it is? Is it all just random events playing out? And if it is random, then why are there so many coincidences? And just how many coincidences does it take to form a pattern? And if a pattern is discovered, what does that mean? Now, what I'm about to show you is highly mysterious in nature. Not much is known about this book, where it's from, when it was written, who wrote it. It's all a mystery. That being said, if anyone knows anything about this book, please let us know in the comments below. Normally, I wouldn't share a book like this without knowing its background, but the words inside are too important to ignore. The Secret Covenant. An illusion. It will be so large, so vast, it will escape their perception. Those who will see it will be thought of as insane. We will create separate fronts to prevent them from seeing the connection between us. We will behave as if we are not connected to keep the illusion alive. Our goal will be accomplished one drop at a time, so as to never bring suspicion upon ourselves. This will also prevent them from seeing the changes as they occur. We will always stand above the relative field of their experience, for we know the secrets of the absolute. We will work together, always, and will remain bound by blood and secrecy. Death will come to he who speaks. We will keep their lifespan short and their minds weak, while pretending to do the opposite. We will use our knowledge of science and technology in subtle ways, so they will never see what is happening. We will use soft metals, aging accelerators, and sedatives in food and water, also in the air. They will be blanketed by poisons everywhere they turn. The soft metals will cause them to lose their minds. We will promise to find a cure from many of our fronts, yet we will feed them more poison. The poisons will be absorbed through their skin and mouths. They will destroy their minds and reproductive systems. From all this, their children will be born dead, and we will conceal this information. The poisons will be hidden in everything that surrounds them, in what they drink, eat, breathe, and wear. We must be ingenious in dispensing the poisons, for they can see far. We will teach them that the poisons are good, with fun images and musical tones. Those they look up to will help. We will enlist them to push our poisons. They will see our products being used in film and grow accustomed to them, and will never know their true effect. When they give birth, we will inject poisons into the blood of the children and convince them it's for their help. We will start early on, when the minds are young. We will target their children with what children love most, sweet things. When their teeth decay, we will fill them with metals that will kill their mind and steal their future. When their ability to learn has been affected, we will create medicine that will make them sicker and cause other diseases, for which we will create yet more medicine. We will render them docile and weak before us by our power. When they grow depressed, slow, and obese, and when they come to us for help, we will give them more poison. We will focus their attention towards money and material goods, so that they may never connect with their inner self. We will distract them with fornication, external pleasures, and games. Their minds will belong to us, and they will do as we say. If they refuse, we shall find ways to implement mind-altering technology into their lives. We will use fear as our weapon. We will establish their governments and establish opposites within. We will own both sides. We will always hide our objectives but carry out our plan. They will perform the labor for us, and we shall prosper from their toil. Our families will never mix with theirs. Our blood must be pure always, for it is the way. We will make them kill each other when it suits us. We will keep them separated from oneness by dogma and religion. We will control all aspects of their lives and tell them what to think and how. We will guide them kindly and gently, letting them think they are guiding themselves. We will foment animosity between them through our factions. When a light shall shine among them, we shall extinguish it by ridicule or death, whichever suits us best. We will make them rip each other's hearts apart and kill their own children. We will accomplish this by using hate as our ally, anger as our friend. The hate will blind them totally, and never shall see that from their conflicts we emerge as their rulers. They will be busy killing each other. They will bathe in their own blood and kill their neighbors as long as we see fit. We will benefit greatly from this, for they will not see us, for they cannot see us. We will continue to prosper from their wars and their deaths. We shall repeat this over and over until our ultimate goal is accomplished. We shall continue to make them live in fear and anger through images and sound. We will use all the tools we have to accomplish this. The tools will be provided by their labor. We will make them hate themselves and their neighbor. We will always hide the divine truth from them, that we are all one. This they may never know. They must never know that a man's color is an illusion. They must always think they are not equal. Drop by drop, we will advance our goal. We will take over their land, resources, and wealth to exercise total control over them. We will deceive them into accepting laws that will steal the little freedom they will have. We will establish a money system that will imprison them forever, keeping them and their children in debt. When they shall band together, we shall accuse them of crimes and present a different story to the world, for we shall own all the media. We will use our media to control the flow of information and their sentiment in our favor. When they shall rise up against us, we will crush them like insects, for they are less than that. They will be helpless to do anything, for they will have no weapons. We will recruit some of their own to carry out our plans. The recruits will be called initiates and will be indoctrinated to believe false rites of passage to higher realms. Members of these groups will think they are one with us, never knowing the truth. They must never learn this truth, for they will turn against us. For their work will be rewarded with earthly things and great titles. The truth will be hidden in their face, so close, they will not be able to focus on it until it's too late. Oh yes, so grand the illusion of freedom will be, that they will never know they are our slaves. When it is all in place, the reality we will have created for them will own them. This reality will be their prison. They will live in self-delusion. When our goal is accomplished, a new era of domination will begin. Their minds will be bound by their beliefs, the beliefs we have established from time immemorial. But if they ever find out they are our equal, we shall perish them. This they must never know. If they ever find out that together they can vanquish us, they will take action. They must never find out what we have done, for if they do, we shall have no place to run, for it will be easy to see who we are once the veil has fallen. Our actions will have revealed who we are, and they will hunt us down, and no person shall give us shelter. This is the secret covenant by which we shall live the rest of our present and future lives, for this reality will transcend many generations and lifespans. This covenant is sealed by blood, our blood. This covenant must never, ever be known to exist. It must never ever be written, spoken of, for if it is, the consciousness it will spawn will unleash the fury of the prime creator upon us, and we shall be cast into the depths from whence we came, and remain there until the end time of infinity itself. Author, unknown. And then here's a spot for the adherents to sign. So what do you think about the secret covenant? To me, it just sounds like the enemy's plan. The plan to usher in the end times events that Jesus Christ himself told us about. It's also clear that whoever wrote this is a Luciferian, talking about the prime creator and oneness, all that stuff. That's Luciferian doctrine. But what are your thoughts on this? Please comment below and tell everybody how you feel. And if you haven't done so already, don't forget to hit that like button. And until next time, thank you all for watching, and God bless you all.
An epic flood, and even a race of giants known as the Jindupids, who were judged and destroyed by God. According to the legend, a race of Indians called the Tartans lived in the valley between Tucson and Phoenix. These were just peaceful farmers, and they prospered until one day they were invaded by the Jindupids, described as Goliaths, who were so huge they used tree limbs for toothpicks. Well, these Nephilim were led by this massive man they call Evilkin, who allegedly came from the northeast and were headed south to their home beyond the Gulf of Baja. These giants nearly wiped out the Tartans before they ran and hid themselves underground and in the mountains and prayed to Father Sun, who then threw this huge fireball that came down to the earth, seared the monstrous Nephilim into the scorched mountain rock, and wiped them out. Now, elements of that tale are obviously mythological, but it has a remarkable thematic coherence with Genesis chapter 6. The Apache creation myth is also interesting in this regard, as a particular version involves what they call the one who lives above, who descended down over the mountain in a flying disc at the start of creation. Their myth begins, in the beginning, nothing existed, no earth, no sky, no sun, no moon, only darkness was everywhere. And then the legend starts, before noting that suddenly from the darkness emerged a disc. One side of it was yellow, the other side of it was white. It appeared suspended in midair. And within the disc sat a bearded man, the creator, the one who lives above. Now, besides this creator who rides in a heavenly disc, there's a dragon with the power of speech that turns up, bargaining with mankind, as well as supernatural gateways associated with mountains through which spirit beings have and can come. So suffice it to say that these ancient native ideas involving flying discs, flying creators, spirit guides, even owls and a talking dragon or a great serpent, and supernatural gateways tied to mountain ranges. This is something that began long before the Vatican cast its eyes on Mount Graham. Think how much these legends mirror what the Bible teaches, including the idea that mountaintops or high towers were often depicted as places where doorways into the supernatural could be opened. For instance, Nimrod of biblical fame sets out to build a tower whose top will reach into heaven, Genesis 11:4 says. This was the infamous Tower of Babel, and Nimrod was designing it so that the top of it would extend into Shamayim, heaven, the dwelling place of God. The Jewish Encyclopedia confirms several historical records that Nimrod, who it establishes was also identified by various ancient cultures as Osiris, Orion, Apollo, Gilgamesh, that he had built the Tower of Babel specifically to ascend into the presence of God, into the presence of Jehovah himself. And of course, God came down and said of the tower's design that nothing would be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do, Genesis 11:6. So in other words, according to the Lord himself, Nimrod would have accomplished what he imagined to do, and that is to build a tower whose top would reach into the abode of God. Even the name Babylon implies that, echoing the North and South American Indian beliefs about towering gateways and the meaning gate of God or gateway to God. Now, that there could be sacred locations where those beings that can see into the supernatural realm could literally walk onto a high place and enter heaven is really not as far-fetched as it sounds. There are numerous records, including in the Bible, that appear to substantiate the idea that heaven can be attained on high towers or mountainous locations. So think about Moses meeting with God on Sinai, Jesus returning atop the Mount of Olives, the 200 watchers that descended in the days of Jared on the summit of Mount Hermon, and other examples, including Jacob's ladder.
Even a young hunter can aid in a proto-Drake hunt. Let us...
First of all, CERN's Large Hadron Collider, the LHC, is the largest single machine in the world, located on the border of France and Switzerland. Its stated purpose is to accelerate subatomic particles by the speed of light and force them to travel in a loop where they then collide in an attempt to recreate conditions that scientists believe applied during the earliest moments in the universe, the Big Bang and similar theories, whereupon the origins of all life as we know it on Earth today might be finally studied and understood. They've already discovered the so-called Higgs boson in 2012, frequently referred to as the God particle, that is said to be the single particle that makes up all matter and led to the birth of the universe. But the hunt for proof of Earth's origin is not their only focus. As Josh Peck and I discovered in our year-long investigation that resulted in the book Abaddon Ascending, and we are by no stretch of the imagination the only ones who believe this to be true, as the secular media, rife with non-believers, scientists, atheists, and skeptics of the supernatural, have also all been in a buzz over the global discussion around CERN's seemingly paranormal associations. Although CERN doesn't publicly profess to an agenda in relationship to God or Satan, evil versus good, the spiritual realm as it would be described by Bible believers and so on, recall what some say was just a CERN ritual, deity Shiva at CERN, and, well, what appears to be stabbing a woman to death in a human sacrifice. The video ends with the videographer crying out and running away, and of course, when the film became public, experts at CERN said it was all just a joke. But all this does suggest there is something more supernatural on the drawing board at CERN than what is being admitted. Even Adam Barker of Tech Bubble wrote of CERN a while back that with the LHC, CERN are expecting to find other dimensions and open portals to these dimensions. If you have the image of Stargate in your head right now, you're spot on. That's what he said. And then he went on to draw parallels to the biblical story of Jacob's ladder. Perhaps you remember the dream that the patriarch Jacob had as he was fleeing his brother Esau. Jacob leaves Beersheba. He's on his way to Haran, and he comes to a certain place, and he stays there that night because the sun had set. Taking one of the stones of the place, he puts it under his head. He lays down in that place to go to sleep. And as he dreams, it says, "Behold, there was a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven. And behold, the angels of God were ascending and descending on it." Then Jacob wakes up from his sleep and he says, "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it." And he was afraid. And he says, "How awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven," Genesis 28. Now this ladder, described in the first book of the Bible, describes something like a portal from heaven to earth through which God's angels, interdimensional and spiritual beings from another reality, were traveling. When Jacob wakes up, he refers to the location as a gate, much like today's trendy terms gateway or Stargate. One of CERN's goals is to recreate Jacob's ladder, according to Barker, and to reopen a portal that is said to have existed between Earth, Mars, Venus, and Saturn when the planets were in alignment many years ago. But whether Jacob's ladder really existed, he says, CERN are pretty sure that other dimensions do, and they're making it their goal to ensure that they open the portal for their use. Who knows? Now, Sergio Bertolucci, who is the official director for research and scientific computing at CERN, he was asked a while back about this extra-dimensional doorway by The Register, which is a London and New York operated science and technology journal. And he didn't hesitate with an enlightening response. He said, "Yes, out of this door might come something, or we might send something through it. And that sounds eerily similar to what Jesus said in John 1:51 when he said, "Truly, truly, I say unto you, you will see heaven open and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man."
I will be the
Now,
greatest hunter
prophecy
this clan has
in
ever
numerous
seen.
parts of the Bible
You
refer
wish,
to a
Arun.
coming day
Which one of us
when
killed their
portals
protege
will be
faster?
open and spiritual entities are going to pass through and come to the earth. Now, if that's true, and if those verses are accepted for their literal meaning and not written off as some kind of poetic allegory, as some scholars have claimed, then the idea of CERN playing with gateways is a major concern. And if, as CERN claims, they're only out to explore space, time, matter, particles, and the origin of our known universe and planets from exclusively a scientific or Darwinian-related perspective, if their agenda is unrelated to Bible prophecy entirely, then what is it with all this mystical symbolism that they knowingly are associating themselves with? Wouldn't it be more appropriate for them just to proudly display a polished statue of a particle or some artist depiction of the Big Bang instead of the statue of Shiva? So, for those who have not yet heard about this controversial piece of art that CERN proudly exhibits between buildings 39 and 40 near the main building of their operation, it stands as really the most visible and celebrated imagery behind their work, Shiva. This is the Hindu god of destruction and a symbol of Shakti, or the life force. He is known very well as the destroyer. And in fact, in 2004, the government of India, which has had a long-standing friendship with leaders behind the CERN project even before the completion of the Large Hadron Collider, they gifted CERN with this bronze work of an artist depicting Shiva as Nataraja, the lord or sometimes king of the dance. This dance that Shiva performs in the sculpture is the one that provides the source of the creation cycle in Hindu mythology, the preservation of all life in existence and the termination of all life in existence. The Rudra Tandava is a dance that especially displays Shiva's sadistic personality as he rains down the ultimate destruction upon a weary planet. Now, from the unveiling of this Nataraja on CERN grounds, controversy's been launched from all sides, including irreligious groups, with questions as to CERN's motive in its exhibition. So far, CERN's response has just most often pointed to the notion that the statue was simply a gift to an international and multicultural scientific institution, and they show it there on their property as an act of gratitude. But if pure appreciation were the only contributing factor, the implications behind the symbolism might continue to disturb some. But it's likely that the issue would at least be dropped by many irreligious groups that could find within themselves to accept the motive that's being put forward by CERN. The plaque at the side beside the statue, however, reads in part, "Hundreds of years ago, Indian artists created visual images of dancing Shivas in a beautiful series of bronzes. In our time, physicists have used the most advanced technology to portray the patterns of the cosmic dance. The metaphor of the cosmic dance thus unifies ancient mythology, religious art, and modern physics." So right there out in the open for all to see is a direct correlation between the Hindu perception of Shiva hundreds of years ago, which is the concept of destroyer that I explained a moment ago, and our time, unifying, quote, ancient mythology, religious art, and modern physics. Additionally, a significant section of CERN is built upon the St. Genus Pauline, which is a commune in Ain, a department of France. In Roman times, the St. Genus Pauline was called a Palliacum, The name Oili comes from the Latin apaliacum, with the Latin suffix lacum, which denoted possession. But the town and a temple were dedicated there in ancient times to Apollyon, the destroyer, the Shiva Horus, if you will. Apollyon is also the angel of the bottomless pit, referred to in Revelation 9:11. And then there is a connection between CERN and the Gothard-based tunnel, the GBT, which is the world's deepest and longest tunnel system, consisting of 2 parallel passages, each moving in a single direction on a single track. The GBT passes directly beneath St. Gothard's Pass, a strategic north-south corridor that connects northern and southern Switzerland. The connection to the Large Hadron Collider and the GBT has to be made primarily because of the bizarre opening ceremony that was live streamed to the entire world on June 1, 2016, that included this highly occult, demonic dance with characterization, beginning with a call to unite the religions of the world by conducting an interfaith blessing of the tunnel beside a statue of St. Barbara, the patron saint of miners. Following the blessing at the statue of St. Barbara, the press, along with visiting dignitaries, also paid tribute to the 9 miners who had lost their lives during construction of the tunnel. Bodio's southern portal provided the visiting dignitaries a disturbing parade, really, of miners, erotic dancers, zombies, fallen angels, a transsexual love fest, all of whom were obeying the call of what they called the shepherd, whose yodels invoked the appearance of the event's infernal master of ceremonies, a goat man, portrayed by a young and energetic dancing male. This creature is shown with a Baphomet headdress, a goat demon's head, if you will, and a goat body costume with a hairy pelt. And then it had a formal tuxedo over the top. The imagery was heavily evocative of the German and Bavarian Christmas demon known as Krampus. Now, according to tradition, Krampus accompanies St. Nicholas on his midwinter rounds with the intent to steal boys and girls, putting them into a basket carried on his back, or he may decide to beat them with branches for being naughty. Maurice Bruce published a book on pre-Christian alpine traditions in 1958, and he had this to say about the half-goat, half-demon entity. There seems to be little doubt as to the true identity, for in no other form is the full regalia of the horn god of the witches so well preserved. The birch, apart from its phallic significance, may have a connection with the initiation rites of certain witch covens, rites which entailed binding and scourging as a form of mock death. The chains could have been introduced in a Christian attempt to bind the devil, but again, they could be a remnant of pagan initiation rites. Krampus, despite his negative imagery and proclivities, was wildly popular during the holidays in Germanic and Alpine countries, so much so that an entire subgenre of greeting cards known as Krampus that invariably say things translated into English that mean greetings from Krampus were created, still used today. Late 19th century and turn of the century cards often feature Krampus with children, but also with buxom women. If those birch branches that turn up in the artwork are phallic in nature, then that makes perfect sense. Many show the goat man in formal dress and a tuxedo-style cutaway formal coat and trousers, but with his usual horned goat face, and always with his tongue extended. Now, this tongue out pose seems to be popular with ancient gods, whether they're Mayan, Hindu, Babylonian, Egyptian, Greek, or even British. For some reason, the coat of arms from the Prince of Wales supports both a lion and a unicorn with their tongues extended, for instance. More than likely, this tongue position represents sexual lust and sex magic, fornicating with fallen angels, which is probably the real reason that old Krampus can't keep his tongue inside his head. The ancient symbol of the horned god, referenced by Maureen Bruce in the quote that I made a moment ago, it allows us to connect our goat demon from the opening ceremony at the GBT to CERN. Despite the fact that the Large Hadron Collider sits 3 to 4 hours down a twisty road from the location, the horn god's circular logic and passion for human depravity, Pernunos, as is sometimes called, or Cernunnos, or the Green Man of British lore, simply had to make an appearance at this occult ceremony. Josh Peckenow and many other researchers have written extensively regarding the in-game plans for tunneling beneath the earth and smashing atoms to smithereens as nothing more than a thinly veiled attempt to open portals. But the opening ceremony at Gotthard made it clear that these portals are intended to do something else, and that is to release demonic entities. The twin tunnels of the Gotthard-based tunnel commence with twin portals on a single track. These northward and southward journeys symbolize the death, birth, death cycle of the Green Man, who dies in the fall and winter and rises in the spring, summer. The tunnel ceremony was all about sex rites and rebirth, leading to a new world order that's a complete reversal of the Judeo-Christian design. This included the triple goddess and the horned god, along with human sacrifice and a return to pagan worship, all of which lie at the center of this nauseating ritual play, which you can probably still watch on YouTube, which commenced with the interfaith blessing and the invocation of the triple goddess. Then this shepherd arouses a horned man who struts into the scene, complete with eerie red lighting and smoke like he's rising from the abyss. That also included this creepy angel that flies down over the top of some of the miners, presumably representing the 9 who died. And then once the first phase, we'll call it the opening of the portal, concluded, the various religious and political dignitaries boarded the train and headed toward the northern terminus at Earthsfield. And note that the choice to begin in the south and end in the north represents the ascension of something to the surface. That is the opening of the abyss. The primary performances took place on a massive outdoor stage in Erzfield, a small city that lies within the canton of Uri in Switzerland. Uri, by the way, is a type of extinct bison, echoing the horned theme once again. So, as the dignitaries settled into their comfortable bandstand seats, a display lit up, showing what looked like a huge rock mountainside. Dancers dressed as miners climbed at this rock face, and they dug into the earth, so to speak, to unveil what was beneath the earth, a great machine formed from human arms that rotated and churned into various shapes and design, many of which resembled the Large Hadron Collider at CERN. Once this opening was achieved, the miners stripped off their orange jumpsuit attire and took up arms. That is, they used staves to perform a dance routine that looked like warfare. Then once that battle concluded, a group of women joined the men, and the women are wearing only white underwear. And the entire dance troupe engaged in a frenzied display amidst a cloud of dust that simulated smoke, I guess. And it was this forensic dance that aroused a giant. So clearly, the endeavor connected to CERN is far more than Switzerland's braggadocio about an engineering feat. The connection between CERN and ritualistic summing